There it is.
This is the Sluggo, slant and go.
It's called Sluggo.
Take 247. Casey the Beef Cregan. Where are you tonight, Casey? I know you were in Clemson last night, but where are you tonight?
I am in the booming metropolis of Greenville, South Carolina tonight, and this week's episode of Where the is the Beef?
We need that empty sound we had before when your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear a word because of as I said, my fancy headphones. I think they were $19.95. Actually, they were a little more, but they worked fine this afternoon during my test run. They have not worked so far. Kevron checks in and says, "Good evening, y'all. Ship happens. Go Tigers, all in." Good to see you, Kevron.
Yes, sir, Kevron.
Greenville. Well, you said you were at the game last night, and we'll get into the basketball in a minute, but interestingly enough, the curse of Cregan, they're playing so well that you couldn't even curse them enough last night.
No, and I do want to get into it later, so I don't want to say too much, but it was a good time back. Good to be back in Littlejohn for the first time in 7 years, so it was nice.
Nice. Yeah, speaking of college basketball, Case, the wife and I are planning on going to Vegas. I didn't think about it when we were scheduling it. This is a long weekend kind of trip, 4 days. We were just planning a weekend around, we had to get somebody to stay with Parker. He doesn't think so, but we do. At least check in on him occasionally, make sure he's got pizza for breakfast and pizza for lunch and pizza for dinner. But sometime around spring break, and after we scheduled it, I went and looked, and it's going to be the Sweet 16 weekend that I will be in Vegas. And yes, my expert research also found out that my Westgate app still works. I checked into it. I logged into it last night. It still works. All I got to do is be in the state borders of Nevada, and I can lose all our vacation money.
That'll be fun, though. I heard it's a great time to be in Vegas, especially for opening weekend. But, if you inadvertently went to Sweet 16 weekend, I'm sure it's just as crazy, if not crazier. Heck, it's Vegas, right?
Yeah, it was, it was okay. The sports book wasn't busy when I was there. I think we were there in July, and that's kind of a dead time, right? There's no football, there's no basketball, baseball's going on, but only the true degenerates bet on there. $27.12 to the positive. Thank you very much. Donated to those vets over at VA 1258, I think it is, in Kyle. But the app still works. All I got to do is keep it working and put some money in there for our trip to Vegas. Hey, over on rubbingtherock.com, I wrote a story today. Can you believe it? Miles Murphy in one mock draft was number 6, right? Overall. Now, I think he's a good player. We know he had an up and down season or whatever. But when people tell me, oh man, he needs to come back for another year, there's nowhere to go for Miles Murphy if in fact he is number 6. Who knows, if one team doesn't take him at 6, he might fall to 12 or 15 or whatever. But the point is, he really didn't have anything to gain from coming back next year.
No, I don't think so. And I saw Mel Kiper put out his first draft, and he's not usually correct, but he's usually correct on the way that the players go by position. Normally, he has the order all wrong, which I don't know how you make a living that way because of all the trades and all this nonsense that happens. And the underwear Olympics at the combine here in a couple months or weeks. But he had Murphy going 8, I think, to Atlanta. And he was the second edge going. So I'm sorry, but if you're the number 1 or 2 edge rusher in college football, according to draft pundits, yeah, where else are you going? I mean, I hated that he left. I really did, but that was more selfish than
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, you're talking the middle of the first round. I looked last year, and I think the guy signed a $15 million contract. Not the same position, but the 15th-ish kind of pick, because that's where I saw pre um, pre mocks. He was around 15th. They thought him and Brzee, by the way. But so the middle of the first round made $15 million last year, or 15 million over 4 years. A lot of that up front, by the way, in a signing bonus, like 7 million or 8 million or something. So when people tell me that he needs another year, I mean, no, not at that position where you get hurt. Brian Brzee, for example, one, that has had a few injuries, and Murphy too. So anyway, I wrote a brief story about that on rubbing.com.
How
John,
about on the flip side before you move forward?
go ahead.
According to Kuiper, Brzee was not in the first round of his mock draft, and neither was Trenton Simpson. So does that maybe pose a question to you, Marty? I mean, a guy like those two, if you're not in the first round, was it a good? How about this? If you don't make it to the first round after leaving early, is it still a good decision?
It depends on what your upside is. And for, if you end up like 40th or something, probably you maybe should come back. But if you're 33rd, I mean, think T. Higgins was what, 33rd? I
Yeah, the
mean,
first pick.
yeah, you're one pick away from being in the first round. Good question. But for Brzee, there's a big risk of injury. I mean, he's had injuries all 3 years, right? All 3 years, 2020, 22. I don't think he had too many injuries the first year. It was the last 2 that he was hurt. So, I mean, that could be a positive or a negative, because you think about it, maybe they're saying, well, he can't stay healthy. But at that position in the trenches, you're going to get, chop blocked and rolled up on and everything. So, good question. And I don't know about Trenton Simpson. I don't know enough about the linebackers and what they can make, or if they're like a lot of them that are going to go in the first round. We know those defensive tackles and the edges are first round guys. So I think Murphy's obvious. I think Brzee could be either way, but what's he going to gain from coming back? Maybe proving he's healthy. He could probably, I guess for me, I'll have to see where he ends up, and which you can't do, obviously, right?
No.
This is not baseball. You can't say, I don't like being drafted in the 9th round or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So that's the hard part.
Truth be told, I think it was a good decision for all 3 of them, regardless of where they end up. And I think you're right with the Brzee injury stuff. I think, and the linebackers. I think there's just a slew of linebackers led off by Will Anderson. And I'm sorry, I love Trenton Simpson. I loved him as a Clemson Tiger, but he's not Will Anderson. So,
Yeah.
I think they all did. It was just funny, not of the ha-ha variety, to see that 2 of them dropped out of the first round that were in there previously.
And it could all change, like you said, when the underwear Olympics comes on. Some guys are going to shoot up to the top. Some guys are not going to drop lower. We got a comment from Mr. JP Priester. Too much risk for Brzee to come back. He made the right call. I tend to agree with you, JP. That position in particular, you're going to get beat up, and it happened to him, and he's a big old boy. He's not a tiny little guy. JP agrees. Brzee should have gone. And some guys, and JP can speak to this. I've asked him to talk about this before, but some guys are just ready to be done with college, right? I mean, you and I loved our 12 years at Clemson as undergrads, but not everybody wants to, especially what those football players are doing. We see them walking around campus, getting patted on the back and whatever, but those guys are up working out. I think they started this week, didn't they? Didn't they start back? They had like 2 weeks off and they're back
mat
at it.
drills.
Yeah, the mat drills have started. So some guys are ready to move on and get paid. And again, if you can get $15 million from the middle of the first round up, certainly worth the gamble in my estimation. All right. And this is something I know JP can talk to. Casey. Clemson has their elite junior day coming up this weekend. I was reading online that the majority of their 2024 offers will be on campus this weekend. Not everybody, but the majority of them. But I was thinking the other day, and I checked this out today, signing days Wednesday, right? And there's next Wednesday, and there's nobody to sign. They've all signed, I think. Am I missing somebody?
No, you're not missing anybody. I can definitely answer that one.
JP says Murphy and Simpson neither had no interest in coming back. I think Brzee strongly considered it. Thanks, JP. Yeah, so I looked, and there's nobody left to sign for Clemson. There'll be a big fat zero unless there's a mystery guy JP can tell us about that he won't tell us about.
It was 26 to 26, I think.
Nobody will sign with Clemson on signing day, which is really weird. Cool, but weird because it's all done. But anyway, 2024 targets, a lot of them will be on campus this weekend. And I read this from JP's tweet, so thank you, JP, about running backs. We're back to the thing where they're offering one running back at a time this year. And the one, and I don't know how to say his name, but the one they have offered will be on hand this weekend. But one running back at a time. We see where that got us this year, not where we need to be. But who knows? Next could have a Travis Etienne and not be aware of it yet. Have you started looking at the 2024 guys yet?
No, not even a little bit. I can't even fake it this year, Marty. I really haven't. And quite honestly, it's going to come once the weekend's over. So I get some returns from people like JP that will obviously report on it. So.
Yeah, I could not do your job, JP, because I can't follow all those guys for months and then have them say LSU or whatever. And you're like, oh, crap, I wasted all that time. This guy's going to LSU or Alabama or whatever. So kudos. I did see that all three of the 2024 commitments that they have, including the kicker, who seems like he wins something every week. I had no idea that there were so many kicking awards and teams, and a team full of kickers. That's what we need. But anyway, so 2024 recruiting is ramping up, and follow JP Priester, allclemson.com, JP Priester on Twitter. That's where I get my info from. All right, Casey, here's our wheelhouse, bud. Clemson basketball, 17-4, 9-1 in the ACC. You couldn't even ruin them by being in the house last night. I was a little worried when you sent the picture. And JP, there you go. Look at that.
Thank you, JP.
Thank you, JP. Let me keep that up, by the way. 17-4, crushed Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech cut it to 3 at one point, like 25-22, but it was 12-0 to start. Never really a game. Playing without their two starting guards, or at least the two that started the season. Every game, somebody steps up that you're not expecting. And we were joking last night on the old text machine with Houston Burnett, who we wonder what happened to Ian Shefflin, who looked so good like the first 12, 13 games of the season. He's turned into me underneath. Not that I could get 7 rebounds and 5 assists, but it just doesn't look like the same guy. But then there's Chauncey Wiggins stepping up, hitting threes, silky smooth. He had 10 against Wake Forest, I believe. He had 12 last night. Just crazy. Somebody steps up. They crush Georgia Tech. They increased their net ranking by 1 spot. Oh, excuse me, by 3 spots. I ruined my own joke, Case. Not a surprise. They increased their net ranking by 3 spots, where Virginia Tech sat idle eating Cheetos and went up 1 spot, probably because of Clemson's win, right? Because Clemson improved their spot. Tigers are playing really good basketball these days.
They really are. And I sent a text in that group chat there about Dylan Hunter. And I think what happened, he didn't have the great numbers. Okay. So I'm in Greenville. I was listening to some all different local sports talk here. I think there's 2 major spots today. and they were, and I know these guys watched the game, or at least a couple of them did, but they were talking about Hunter Tyson with his normal 12 points and 9 rebounds or whatever he had. He had 3 points going into about 7 minutes left in that game. He ended up with 12.
Yeah.
He wasn't great last night, but he didn't really have to be. He hit that first 3 to start the game, and then kind of let Brevin Galloway do his thing for a little bit. But I swear the common force, in my opinion, was Dylan Hunter. It didn't have the numbers. He had 4 turnovers, which were not really at big moments. I guess when you have the big lead, or even when it got down to 5 at one point, he was still the calming force, to the point where we saw a lot of players last night. But the one guy you didn't see very often, he came in for 1, maybe 3 minutes, was Josh Beadle.
Yep.
I think that was because Dylan Hunter was so steady. And Dylan Hunter played 32 minutes. Brevin Galloway played 36 minutes. Hunter Tyson played only like 22 because he had foul trouble early, a couple stupid fouls. But really, really a fun night in Littlejohn. Hats off to Jeff Holley, who does a really nice job. He's on Twitter as well. He's the I call him the ancillary voice of the Tigers. He's the kind of the second in charge when the voice, the PA announcer, I can't think of his name. He's a guy in Greenville. I can't believe I can't remember his name. JP, he's right here. He's on TV. But whenever he's not there, but he does a great job with the in-game entertainment. I thought it was a great night. I thought Clemson was really well coached last night. Yes, Georgia Tech is struggling a little bit, but they have a couple players. They really do, and you could tell they really buckled down on defense as well, especially in the second half. The first half, they were giving up a couple rebounds on the offensive end, but that cleaned up other than outside of one possession in the second half where Georgia Tech got 3 offensive rebounds in one possession. It was really a clean night, and it was a fun night in Littlejohn. It really was. I enjoyed it. And a lot of athletes were out last night. I noticed I was fanboying a little bit. Saw my boy Blake Wright, saw Will Taylor, saw Miss Paula. I was sitting, literally, I didn't even realize it. I was sitting right above Miss Paula and her husband for a good portion of the game. Nice. All these people kept coming in, giving her hugs. I'm like, who the hell is that? Oh, that's Miss Paula.
So, that's why she's getting all the hugs. Yeah, Dylan Hunter, I think he's played well, considering how much he had played previously, right? He's got to play now, and he didn't have a chance to really break himself in. My concern about him and Beadle is there's several, but the one that sticks out is both Chase Hunter and especially Alex Hemingway are outside threats. Now, Dylan Hunter's going to score you 6 or 8 points a game, but they're all layups. Yeah.
He gets to the basket.
Yeah, he does. Agreed. He has, let me say this. He has the last 2 games, the first few games. I don't even think he was close, but I mean, I got to give the kid a break. He hadn't played that much until recently. So, Jason says, or JP says, looks like Brownell hit on all 3 of those freshmen, and we've not even seen the other Chauncey yet. The Texas Chauncey hasn't seen the court.
Yeah, he was on crutches. I guess he had something with the knee surgery, maybe.
They have just played really well. Now, the problem going forward is they really don't have that many games. I mean, it's good and bad. Their record's going to be good. They've got Florida State and Boston College coming up. I think Florida State is 200 and Boston College is 198, or maybe it's reversed, but they're both right there. I checked today in the net rankings. So they can't lose either of those games on the road. They just can't, or they're in trouble. But they don't have a lot of quad 1 teams left to play. North Carolina, I don't even know if they're quad 1. They're like 14-6 or something. So they're going to have to win.
They do play Virginia.
Of their games. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They play Virginia. That's a quad 1.
Good point.
But you're right. No, they don't play a lot of them. But I'll tell you what, Florida State down there. I know they got their doors blown off last night, but Florida State down there, that's a house of horrors for Clemson. That's normally like you just know you're going to split with Florida State.
Yeah.
And they have their kid that was ineligible. He's back, and they've been playing better. I wouldn't pencil that one in quite yet as a W, and that may really hurt Clemson if they don't go on the road to a tough environment and get a win.
Yeah. But something you said that I wanted to hit on too, that I've said it a few times on rubbingtherock.com, is that this is a well coached team. Um, and I'm talking about little things. We talked last week about little things with the baseball team, but little things with the basketball team. Getting the ball in bounds against Duke in the last 2 or 3, whatever it was, the last 10 seconds. So it didn't become a closer game than it needed to be. Getting the ball in bounds, I think it was Virginia Tech. Those things sound stupid to talk about an ACC level team having to worry about those, but I worried about them. But Brownell has called timeouts at the right time. He's put the right players in a position to be their best at the right time. He's just done a really good job. Now, whether it's him, changing the coaching staff, whether it's one of the assistants that's made the difference, or it's a combination of all of the above. Look at how well, like Ian Shefflin, uh, Cannell's nephew, Middlebrooks, I couldn't think of his name, Middlebrooks and PJ Hall is played great this year. The big men have just come alive this year for Clemson. Chauncey Wiggins, the moves he made last night. I was cutting up the clips. You'll see Chauncey in the morning, by the way. I was cutting up the clips today, and he just looks so silky smooth. And JP hit on it a couple minutes ago. It looks like Brownell recruited 3 pretty good guys there, 3 freshmen, hit on all of them maybe.
I really think he did, and I mean, you know what these guys do? They play within themselves, and I know that's a cliche, but they really do. And they hit on it on local sports talk today. That Hunter Tyson is not a one, and I think they played their best game without Chase Hunter last night, and they finally figured out, like, just be you. Hunter Tyson's not a point guard. No matter how much you try to force feed him, he's not. He's more of a slasher. He's a guy that gets to the rim off the wings. He's a 3, as they say. PJ Hall's going to get his, and he's been fantastic. Like he's been so good that you don't even have to mention him, just because everything's going in for him now. It's amazing how it's amazing how in the past Clemson has had big men that get underneath and miss layups, or how many layups were missed.
Yes.
It goes back to the baseball with being fundamental. And I almost sent a tweet out last night just how Middlebrooks is a bucket underneath. If he gets a rebound and goes back up, it's in, and then he missed the layup. So I was like, I'm going to table that text for a little bit.
Well, you missed the guy on the TV said, I don't know how that pass got in there, and I don't know how Middlebrooks missed that layup. And I agree with both of those.
But he's been great. He's been great on like the 3 big men. That and Brownell's rotation is wonderful. He'll run 2 or 3 guys out there, and you don't really miss a beat. It's been fun to watch. They've been fun to watch, and I told you at the beginning of the year they're going to do it to me, Marty. They wrote me in. They literally wrote me in and then disappoint me. But disappoint me is don't make the tournament. Once it's in the tournament, it's all gravy for me.
Well, usually they've disappointed you long before January the 20th.
Heck yeah.
like the 5th or 6th.
And after Loyola Chicago, I was like, here we go.
Yeah. Usually they disappoint long before now. So it's just wild. And JP asked if PJ comes back next year. I think he does. I don't know. I watch a fair amount of NBA because Parker loves the NBA and the Spurs, and there are guys like him in the NBA, but not a lot of them. And I don't see the athleticism that I see on most NBA players. I could be wrong. I'm certainly not an NBA scout. I'm just telling you what I see. There's a lot of, when Parker walks downstairs last night and sees a halftime score of 35-28 or whatever the heck it was, he's like, that's the first quarter, right? Because those guys are up and down. You want to shoot the threes? He can shoot a 3, apparently. Can he shoot an NBA 3? I don't know. But even at 6'10", he's going to have to, because everybody shoots the 3.
I think he's a little small to play the 5. And that sounds funny to say at 6'10", 6'11". But I will tell you, there's no question that he's going to go flirt with it, like Amir Sims did before him. I mean, he's going to go to all those
Makes
tryouts
all the
and
sense in the world.
workouts and all the. I mean, there's no question. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. However, like you and JP says, I do think he comes back for one more year. Not having Hunter Tyson may hurt, but because it seems like those two are very close. I don't know, just perception. But we'll see. We'll see.
But here's the thing, and here's why this show is called A Weird Place, because this is a weird place for a Clemson fan. You just said it. You're expecting them to disappoint you, and maybe they still will. But typically, as I wrote in rubbingtherock.com, Clemson fans, the team is highly ranked, and in whatever ranking, whether it's the top 25 or the net or Kim Palm, they're typically higher ranked than they are now, and the team on the court doesn't live up to that. This year, it's just a weird place because the roles are reversed, right? Because this year, the fans are buying in right now. You see it on Twitter. The fans are buying in, and it's the computers that aren't buying in. So it's a really weird place that you're worried maybe about losing, like you said, in Tallahassee on Saturday, and what that can mean for this team. Not that they're gonna give up and lose 4 or 5 in a row like they have in the past, but that they'll never catch up in the computers. It's just a weird spot for Clemson fans who are starting to believe. And seems like I'll say this. Humans do. I think if you don't live in the Columbia metropolitan area, you see that this is a good basketball team and that they've grown since December, just being objective. Are they, top 5? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're a good team, good college team. They've grown a lot since December, but the computers don't see that. The computers don't go, oh, it's now almost February. That was back in December. They see 2 quad 4 losses. And it's just a shame because, as you said, they're fun to watch. And I hope they make the tournament and get a seed that they deserve and they aren't stuck. Last time I saw, they were an 8 seed somewhere, which, great, whatever, 8-9. That's a good matchup. But I hope they eventually, Brownell said it a couple of years ago. They were ranked like 30th in the net and didn't make the tournament. Now, maybe this year they get that back. They're ranked 50th and they do make the tournament. We'll see. But anyway,
Well, it's
it's
like
a weird
JP
play.
said on his. JP had his Facebook thing the other day. Make it make sense with beating Virginia Tech twice head to head and being below them in the net. And then I think it was JP's colleague Brad Sinkoff this morning on 105.5 The Roar. They were comparing Utah State, who has one less win, and like he said, I don't know anything about Utah State either, but one less win, the exact same quad 1, quad 2, or they're 0-2 against quad 1. I think Clemson's 2-2. And Utah State is something like 28th in the net.
Well, I can
It's
pull
like
it up.
is the Mountain West that much better? My thing is it's got to be that 18-point loss to Loyola Chicago that is really dragging them down. And I know losing to South Carolina probably also didn't help either because I think they're in the 200s. They're getting blown out by 26 or something tonight right now to Florida. But these teams that Clemson would hope that could grab a couple wins to help that number. I don't understand it. It's computers. It's crazy, but I do think they get in. I think they lose to Rutgers again because that seems to be the matchup every time Clemson gets in the tournament. It's Rutgers.
The last I saw, they were matched up with Wisconsin. But okay, here's Utah State. They're currently 35th in the net, 15-4. They are. Where did I go? I lost it. Boy, this is great radio. Radio? Now my computer stopped working. Okay. What a night for me.
Well, I wanted to tell you just they're 9-1, right, in the conference right now, halfway through. So there's 10 more conference games. And I know you're going to Utah State, so just a little filler. Going through just on paper their schedule, they have Florida State, Boston College. Miami. So the schedule gets tougher because it's Miami at North Carolina. We know how many times Clemson's won there. Florida State again. Louisville, they shouldn't lose to Louisville. Syracuse, they probably shouldn't lose to Syracuse either, although they gave UNC a run last night. NC State will be tough, as it always is. Virginia will be tough, and you shouldn't lose to Notre Dame this year. So there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say split with Florida State. There's at least 5 wins left. So that's 14. So they're going to maybe end up, worst case scenario, 14-6 in the conference. That's a heck of a year.
It is. Utah State is 0-2 in quad 1, 6-0 in 2, 6-0 in quad 3, and 3-2 in quad 4. So they've only played 2 quad 2.
What number
teams.
are they?
Huh? 35th in the net. 35th in the net. And they've only
20
played
points higher.
And they've only played 2 quad 2 teams, and they lost to both of them. I mean,
yeah,
you wouldn't think you wouldn't think it'd be strength of schedule. Evening guts. Well, yes, tuning in,
guys.
I was thinking, yes, I do have a gut, but
can you see that on camera?
I thought the below the belt was
Is this my doctor?
Robbie Posey, thanks for the laugh, buddy. Good to see you. Yeah, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But here's the thing: does anybody know what the formula is? I don't think they tell anybody. They don't want anybody to know. It's just weird. It's weird. It's just, I don't know.
Hopefully it's not the end all be all. And like Brownell said last night, it's just another tool in their bag.
I was reading or I was watching a documentary on Stalin today, and this is kind of like what I feel like is like they changed it. He said he changed to whatever was good at the time, and I'm thinking that's what the net does. The net rankings guy, even guys tuned in. But Surfside Beach, you went from Myrtle Beach to Surfside Beach in like 38 seconds.
That's good.
Don't text and drive, Robbie. Don't text and drive. But anyway, like you said, Beef, there's a few good teams left, and those, I think they'll be better off if they don't lose to the 200s than if they beat the number 4s or number 40s or whatever North Carolina is. There's no really high ranked teams in the ACC this year, as evidenced by Clemson being 91 in the conference and being number 50, whatever they are. So just a weird place.
My point. I'm fine. I'll wrap it up with a bow here. My point is, I think at 9-1, there's a lot more give, I think, for a successful season than we've seen in the past, where you're hoping that they get to a 10, 11, 12 wins. I truly don't see them losing 10 more games. Like 5-5 is still really, really good. And let the win a game or two in the ACC tournament and figure it out from there. But this team's good. It's well coached, and if they can get healthy, stay healthy, I think it's going to be special. I don't think special national championship special, but it's going to be special.
Well, Ken Palm has them finishing the year at 23-8 and 15-5 in the ACC. Now,
that's great.
He's got them losing to North Carolina on the road, NC State on the road, and Virginia on the road. Those are his 3 losses. Now, I know they only have 4 now. 4 and 3 equals 7. I do know that much. He's got them down as 8 losses. That's got to do with probabilities, right? Somewhere in there, they're going to lose another game. Individually, he's got them winning all the other ones. But when you add up the probabilities, it goes over to 1 more loss.
Yeah, it makes sense. But wow, 15-5. You're getting a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament. They're a full game, depending on what UVA does tonight, ahead of UVA in the ACC. I mean, enjoy it, Clemson fans. Yep. Enjoy it.
15-5 in the ACC. Could you imagine thinking that back in November or last summer when I was complaining about the coaching staff and a bunch of turnover and young guys, and wow. Incredible. So yes, I'm enjoying it. You said it earlier. We'll move on to talk about baseball in a second, but you said it earlier. The biggest key for me is this is a fun team to watch. They play hard. They don't give up. They're not the most athletic team. If you saw Ian Shefflin and why can't I think of Cannell's?
Ben Middlebrooks.
Middlebrooks. If you saw Shefflin and Middlebrooks, they don't always look graceful, but man, they try hard and they are really, really good. Well, JP, I think you were ahead of the curve because I think they said
Way
last
ahead.
week they came in 11th in the media poll preseason. So pat yourself on the back. Heck, you were much closer than a lot of people. Okay, Casey, I know this is something you enjoy, I enjoy, and JP enjoys, and probably Robbie Posey also. Clemson baseball starts practice Friday and inter-squad scrimmages this weekend. I don't suppose you'll still be in the greater Clemson area. No?
No, and I had to do this trip this week, but I was hoping and thinking it was next week where I knew they started Friday. I was thinking they started last Friday so that I could catch a baseball practice on my way into the basketball game last night, but did it a week too fast. But I'm looking forward to reading JP stuff and on this weekend with Clemson baseball. It's exciting, and even just seeing a couple of the guys hanging out together last night at the basketball game got me a little excited for it. Like I said, Blake Wright was standing right next to me, taking a film of the opening, whatever the starting lineups, probably for Snapchat, like all these little whippersnappers are doing. But yeah, it was just cool. It's cool to see Will Taylor. He looks big. He looks in shape. He looks scary. And yeah, I'm just excited for Clemson baseball. I mean, they could win 6 games this year. I'd still be excited for Clemson baseball. I just love it.
That's a lot of L's.
And it's a lie, too.
And Beef, you showed your age. You said he was taking a film. First of all, even if film still existed, that would be old school. But film hasn't existed for a long time. And what is a Snapchat? Well, JP, you got a teenage daughter. You might want to find out what the Snapchat is. Parker doesn't do Snapchat that I know of. He does Instagram. He's on the gram. That I know of. That's the key phrase there that I know of. And we had an occasion to check the phone out the other day, so I'm all over it. So I better not laugh too loud. The media guide's out, Casey, so you can figure out how to pronounce all the names of Chowder Head guys from Boston and wherever. And I saw the other day, I think it was on allclemson.com. Clemson is a 100-1 odds to win the College World Series, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, there's 300 and something teams, and they didn't even make the tournament last year, and they got a new coach and I think 157 new players, and 100-1 odds is I think everybody had 101 odds that really didn't have a chance to win. I think they just set it there, but 100-1 odds to win the title. I think we're all three really excited about Clemson baseball. As I said the last couple of weeks, I don't know, 14-42 or 42-14, but it's a new era. I love Monty Lee. I think it was time to move on. They've moved on. Let's give somebody else a shot to do it. Gave Monty 7 years and didn't work out.
Yeah, it's exciting. February 17th, SUNY Binghamton. I think they're just called Binghamton now, but SUNY Binghamton, State University of New York at Binghamton will be in the Bears. Will be in Doug Kingsmore. I think they're the Bears.
I was gonna take a wild guess, and the Bears was not what I was gonna guess. I'm sure you'll let me know when you do your rubbing the rock.
Those are a little tough to do. I'm gonna have to scour back into last season to figure out who's on the roster, and still, at least with a couple last year, I started kind of right before ACC season started, so I had an idea as to what was going on. I had some stats. I hadn't watched necessarily some of the teams that were playing. Yeah.
JP, if you need to get rid of your credentials, I know somebody who would probably be available that weekend on the 18th against Binghamton. How do you say it? Is it Binghamton?
Binghamton, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if it was different from.
I wouldn't cheer too loudly, and I'll carry a camera on the field. Whatever I need to do.
Just don't make it a Polaroid like you were talking about earlier. Okay, Up next, I don't have anything. I don't know anything about the softball team this year. I know Nelson asked me to talk about it after last week's show. I know they're ranked preseason number 10 by somebody. I saw that on Twitter scrolling. I don't know who it was. I didn't delve into the story, but Nelson, we mentioned softball. We mentioned their preseason number 10 by somebody, and go Tigers. I don't know what you got, Case.
I'll do some research for him next week. For next week's show, as all you need to know is Valerie Kegel's back, and so is the lefty. She's back too. So you got the great
Millie.
1-2 pitchers. Millie Thompson. Excuse me. I was talking to an Oklahoma alum, actually a beat writer for one of their fan sites, and he was telling me that Oklahoma has 6 starting pitchers, and they're probably going to a rotation this year. And he also said that, and he wasn't gloating, he also said that 1 through 8 in their lineup should have at least 15 home runs, and this team should be better than the one that had Aho last year. And so, let's just hope that Clemson can get to Oklahoma City. That would be awesome. But just know and temper expectations. Year 3, year 4 is probably not the national championship year for Clemson, and that title probably still goes to the Sooners at Oklahoma. But the recruiting class is good. Yeah.
JP tells us they have 3 players ranked in the top 100. Clemson, that is. I think Oklahoma has 21 or 22.
That's exactly what I said
last year. Why
That's
even
what I
play
said.
the season? We hear I hear this new saying, and around the end of football season, they started talking about it on a lot of podcasts, saying so and so is a wagon, meaning they're just running over people. Guess what? Oklahoma was a wagon in softball last year.
And I saw them lose a game, and it was like, whoa. I think they were like 65-3 or something ridiculous like that. But
they were beating teams like 40-2 and 31-1.
They had something like 27 run rule games or something unreal,
Just
and they're
crazy.
not playing slouches. They're playing Texas. They're playing the biggest teams in the country. Just about. They're playing Pac-12 teams. Yeah, I know this isn't an Oklahoma softball podcast. I just got in this conversation with this guy the other day who's super, super, super nice guy. Writes for Sooner Scoop for them.
Nelson asked us to talk about Clemson softball. We do for 45 seconds. That's been.
I just read softball. Nelson asked softball.
All right, Beef. We had some technical difficulties getting going, and hopefully won't have any on the way out. Tell these people thank you. I wanted to thank JP and Robbie Posey for chiming in, and we appreciate you guys for checking it out. JP, allclemson.com will be checking out your stuff about the big recruiting weekend.
And you can find it anywhere at all. Thanks to everyone in the Seldom Used Reserve College Football Discussion Facebook group, especially Uncle John McGee, as always, JP Priester, Jason Priester, Sluggo Podcast, and each and every one of you who listens, likes, shares, and participates. On behalf of Marty Seldom Used Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week here on Sluggo.
I think we're done here.